you think of any military general in all of history who never lost a single battle in his entire career? Recently, I have been reviewing the life and accomplishments of Alexander the Great and have completed sizable research in order to discuss him. Today, I will provide you with an outline on the childhood, adolescent years, conquests, and mysterious death of Alexander the Great. According to an article titled Alexander the Great by historian Paul Cartledge for History Today magazine, Alexander was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of a small Greek empire called Macedonia. His father, Philip II, was the king, and his mother was a princess from a neighboring Greek empire named Olympias, who served as a useful addition to his many political marriages. However, Olympias claimed that Alexander's real father was actually an Egyptian snake god, which becomes important later. Alexander was a very rambunctious boy. In fact, his father hired two separate educators who both failed to make Alexander tighten up. Ironically, it was the same boy who tamed a massive stallion at the age of just 12 years old, finally earning his father's approval. Alexander named this horse Bucephalus, meaning ox head, and he would ride this horse on his many war campaigns. As you can see, Alexander had a very strange upbringing, but this was even more true during his adolescent years. A 13-year-old Alexander was sent to the town of Mesa to be taught under the wing by famous philosopher Aristotle. There, Alexander gained a wealth of medical knowledge that he would utilize in his campaigns and gained a great ambition for war and conquest after reading Homer's Iliad. He was so obsessed with the story, in fact, that he carried a copy with him in battle that Aristotle personally wrote for him. After finishing his tutoring at 16 years old, Alexander went back to Pella, the capital, and that was when Philip II appointed him as the regent of Macedon, just 16 years old. And Alexander would use this opportunity to wage war on the neighboring empire of Thrace. He swiftly eradicated them and even renamed their capital after himself, calling it Alexandropolis. Just a few years later, Alexander became king at 20 years old after Philip II was suddenly assassinated during a wedding celebration by a Macedonian noble. Alexander swiftly conquered most of Greece, a massive feat at the time, considering how split it was with the many empires scattered around. But his most notable campaign was the one to take down the Persian Empire to the east. According to Rick Black, in his article for Calliope magazine titled The March East, Alexander crossed over to Asia Minor, which is modern Turkey, with 40,000 soldiers, cavalry, shield bearers, and archers. As he strolled through the Persian royal road with his army, most of the cities would surrender. About a year into this, Darius III, the emperor of Persia, realized he had competition. Eventually, Alexander reached Darius III's personal army, but Darius would retreat all the way to modern Afghanistan over the course of about 2 years, but he would be betrayed by one of his own provincial governors and killed. Pretty soon, Alexander took control of the rest of the Persian Empire by 330 BC. And at this point, Alexander's alleged divinity that his mother Olympias claimed started to make sense to many Macedonians because, like I said earlier, he never lost a battle. But in 325 BC, when his army had reached all the way to Pakistan, his army refused to go any further. Alexander complied, and they finally turned west to go back home, which shows, surprisingly enough, that Alexander showed great appreciation and care for his soldiers. He would listen to their stories of the battles afterward. In fact, according to Most Brilliant in Judgment, an article on American Surgeon magazine written by multiple authors, Alexander would steer clear of areas riddled with dead bodies in order to avoid airborne infection, and would even coach his own physicians on how to treat his soldiers as well as his own injuries. It is very clear that Alexander's army trusted him deeply up until his death. According to Who Killed Alexander the Great, author James Romm's article published by History Today, Alexander passed away in the city of Babylon in 323 BC at just 32 years old. His symptoms were rather vague. Some say that he contracted a fever after a drinking party that only worsened over the course of 10 days before dying, but others say he instead suffered from lower back pain, leading to convulsions and delirium. Most think he contracted some sort of disease, but many theories stand that he was murdered by poison. There were various motives for this, such as someone may have wanted to avenge Alexander's killing in a drunken fit of one of his own cavalry commanders, or maybe even his own appointed regent of Macedonia, who simply had a lust for power. Either way, it led him to an early grave. Today, I have given you an introductory account of the childhood, adolescent years, conquests, and mysterious death of Alexander the Great. Though his life was cut short, it is clear he could have accomplished much more given any amount of time. If this were to be the case, you might wonder how different our world would be today.